What's up YouTube fam, it's Amanda the author and I'm back with another video. I'm so sorry I left y'all in a lurch last week. I filmed this video actually, and after reviewing the footage while I was editing, I decided I needed a little bit more. It wasn't giving quite what I needed it to give, so I decided to refilm it, and today we are talking about Charmed. Specifically, I'm telling y'all my thoughts on the Charmed reboot, and I have a lot of mixed feelings. If you follow me on social, you know that I've been feeling kind of a way about it. I posted about this on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok the other day, telling y'all a little bit about how I was feeling and asking you your opinions, and I'm getting the vibe that a lot of y'all feel the same, that this reboot is a little bit of a mixed bag. So I decided to do a bit of a review and kind of go over all of it. We're talking, you know, the origin, the drama surrounding the show, sisterhood, the powers, the world building, the overall story, and more. So if y'all are interested in hearing my opinion on the Charmed reboot, stay tuned. This is gonna be a video full of spoilers. So if you haven't seen the show and you're still looking to watch the show, I would probably skip this video if I was you. I'm gonna be talking about all 3 seasons, things that happen in all 3 seasons. So if you haven't seen it or you're a little behind and you don't want spoilers, I would probably skip it. But if you are here for the spoilers and you want all the tea, then stick around and hang out with me. And also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and you can hang out with me even more. Let's get started. Charmed was an American TV show that premiered in 1998. It followed 3 sisters, the Hallowell sisters. They were 3 witches known as the Charmed Ones, and it was their duty to basically save the world from demons and all things evil, all while being modern women of the 90s and the new millennium, basically, once the show rolled over into the 2000s. Now, the show was a cult classic. It aired until 2006, and it is, like I said, it's a cult classic. There are so many people who love the show for a variety of reasons. Not just because it was one of the shows, along with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that in the late 90s brought a bit of magic, a little modern witchy fantasy to our TV screens, but it is also a show that was hailed as being pretty feminist for its time, especially because of the focus on the sisterhood. There was a lot of conversations the sisters had that had nothing to do with men, but there was also a lot of conversations they had that had everything to do with men. So there we go. The show ended in 2006, and there were a lot of people who were super excited about the show, wanted to see more Charmed content. So when I initially heard about the reboot, I think I was a little more excited than a lot of other people. Charmed was such a big show for me. I watched it all the time when I was a kid. As a fantasy lover, it's iconic. I was interested in seeing more content, but then when they announced it as a show with completely new people and not following the children of the first Charmed Ones or having the first set of Charmed Ones come back, that did kind of make me feel a little skeptical, just because I, along with all these other fans, wanted to see more from them. Now, in addition to all of the, sentimentality behind the show and part of why people were a little lukewarm about the announcement, is the marketing surrounding the reboot. A lot of it was positioning the show as the women taking down the patriarchy and being a super hyper feminist show, which the original cast took issue with because they all felt like their show had been a very feminist show, and I think it was. For the time that the show aired, it was pretty feminist, so I can understand why people felt that way. The other big issue with the show is the colorism problem, which is this idea that because all 3 of these women are lighter skinned and have, longer hair, that they're able to pass for Latina, when only one of them, Melonie Diaz, is actually Latina. And it's unfortunate that they decided to bill the show as such, as this Latinx Latina show. And there's an article by Princess Weeks on the Mary Sue about this very topic, written back in 2018, and it's right here. She explains this situation in a lot more detail and a lot better than I could. But essentially, it's the issue of them hiring these actresses with the idea that they can just pass. The other issue that a lot of people took with the show, and this is again all before the show even aired, was when we found out that the sisters did not screen test together. Now, screen testing, I'm sure you've heard, but for those who don't know, it's essentially an audition, but when you have multiple people trying out for a role or that are going to be acting together, you generally will have them audition or screen test together to double check that there is chemistry there. They did not have these actresses do that ahead of time, which, given the fact that they're supposed to be sisters, probably would have been a good idea. I will get into why later, but I'm sure you can gather that it would probably have been a good idea for them to do this. Now, despite all of those issues, I still decided to give the show a chance. I have seen all 3 seasons so far, and that's why we're here. The point of this video is I'm giving you my opinion, my very mixed opinion on the show. So now that I've gotten kind of this background out of the way, the background of the original Charmed and the background behind the reboot, let's get into it. So this is a show following the Charmed ones, and we're going to start first with the 3 sisters. First, we have Macy. Macy is the oldest sister. She is the one who gets the power of telekinesis, similar to Prue in the original show. Macy is a scientist. She is somebody who grew up alone, so in this reboot, she's the half-sister, the long-lost half-sister. She didn't know she had siblings until the very first episode. Then we have Mel, and Mel is a very blunt, matter-of-fact woman. She is a women's studies professor, and she has the power of molecular manipulation, although at first they call it, being able to freeze time. They call her a time witch. So she has the same power as Piper. She is a lesbian. She is very fiercely feminist. Then there is Maggie, rounding out the sisterhood, and Maggie is played by Sarah Jeffery. Now, Maggie is the youngest. She is a college student. She wants to rush a sorority, and she is an empath. She ends up being able to hear people's thoughts initially, but she does end up with power, basically the same power as Phoebe later on. Then we have Harry, who is supposed to be their whitelighter, and he initially is somebody who takes over the seat of the sister's mother, Marisol. He becomes the women's studies chair when Marisol dies. And Mel has a big, huge issue with a man, a white cisgendered male, being the head of a women's studies department, which I kind of can't blame her. Harry is there to guide the witches. He's able to heal them. He's able to, he doesn't really orb. It's more of a different type of transportation in this. And he goes through a bit of a transformation. And I will be talking about the differences between seasons 1 and 2 and 3 because there are a lot. But in season 1, he's far more of a father type figure. He's kind of a fuddy-duddy. He wears cardigans and he says things like sticky wicket, and he's, I would say, portrayed as pretty sexless. I watched the first season not even checking for Harry in that way. It's really kind of enjoying the relationship and the bond that he is forming with the sisters. Now I'm going to move into a bit of the world building and kind of what the show is saying about magic, what rules they have around their magic. And a lot of it is similar to the original Charmed. There's a book of shadows that the sisters use. It had been, their mothers and passed down in their family. And this is where they get a lot of their spells. Now, unlike the original Charmed, which had the sisters doing some pretty intense page flipping to search for the right spell, the Book of Shadows in this reboot, kind of a little bit like a Siri, where, they say, show me a spell to find a demon with blue blood, and the book kind of skims and then they're able to find the spell. I didn't mind it. It just felt a little too convenient because I think part of the excitement of the original show was the sisters being in that research mode and the process of trying to figure out which demon it was, and the fact that sometimes they were wrong, that their research was wrong, that they had their hand on 2 pages, that they decided, or there were, demons that were very similar. So I think that them more automatically being able to pinpoint the big bad in the show, I think takes a little bit of the stakes away. In the first season, the witches' powers are very similar to those of the original. So we have telekinesis, the ability to freeze time. There are also a group of elders that are essentially kind of like a witches' council that are making rules for, in this case, all of magic, all of the, you know, magical, I guess, kingdom. We're talking witches, satyrs, even like pixies as well. And this is similar to the original. However, in this case, it is all women. It is a fully woman-led group of elders, and the elders, like the witches, have their own day jobs, and they're not these celestial beings that are, you know, in the clouds and in some like super hidden heavenly place, which I actually liked. I liked that they made the elders just, you know, more experienced witches who also had day jobs. There's also, again, in this show, it is frowned upon for witches and white lighters to couple. Necromancy is also considered to be like the darkest magic there is. You have the demon world, there are different factions. In later seasons, in seasons 2 and 3, 2 of the 3 sisters have different powers. Seasons 2 and 3 are different, very different, and that is, I think, due in large part to them having different showrunners. Now that I've gone into and explained a lot of the core parts of the show, we're finally at the part where I'm going to talk to you about all of my issues with the show, and there are quite a bit. I am also going to tell you the things that I like about it, so lest y'all think I'm just a negative Nancy, I am not. There are genuinely things I do like about the show, and I will get to those at the end because I want to end on not a sour note. All that said, let's get into the good stuff. So season 1 is definitely the better season out of these 3. It feels the most cohesive. It's also the one that has a little more humor. It's a little lighter, a little campier, and it's very Monster of the Week centric. You know, each episode there's a different big bad that they're fighting, and meanwhile, there's kind of an overarching thing that the sisters are dealing with. Very similar to other shows like Supernatural and even Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where you have a season-long ultimate capital B bad, but along the way, the characters are fighting these little kind of mini battles as they're doing research in preparation for or leading up to the ultimate, you know, season finale where they're rescuing somebody, they're fighting the big bad, they're all of that jazz. And that's very much what season 1 was. Then they got new showrunners in seasons 2 and 3 and decided just to completely do away with all of the things basically that they established in season 1. Season 2 is darker, it's more cinematic, it does away with a lot of the Monster of the Week format, so you have multiple episodes focused on one thing, sometimes nonsensical things, and the sisters have different, 2 of the 3 sisters have different powers. That is another issue that I have. I understand that they got new showrunners and I could totally see them wanting to maybe go in a different direction, but the change felt very jarring. And though they did their best to try to explain it off as the sisters being in witchness protection and they have their powers stripped as they go through this magical portal that takes them essentially off the grid into Seattle. Initially they were in some random town in Michigan, but seasons 2 and 3 take place with them in Seattle. It just felt like the end of season 1 set the Charmed ones up to essentially be the new elders, the arbiters for all of the magical world. And I thought that that was a really fun place to end, and I thought that could be a fun place to see the sisters go, because we would learn more about the magical world. In this world, we learn more about the different types of creatures and demons and things like that, and maybe have more of the Monster of the Week situation. But they didn't do that. They went completely different, and I wish that they hadn't. The sisters end up with different powers. Macy is half demon. She's able to control fire. When the sisters lose their powers in season 2, she keeps that power because it's a demonic power. It's not a witch power. It takes the sisters like over half the season for them to get any semblance of their powers back, and that felt too long of a time for them to be struggling without having their powers. When they did get their powers back, Mel's power is freezing things, and they say it's molecular manipulation, and I think she eventually will be able to blow things up, but it's another way of them giving her the same power as Piper. And Maggie, I will say, I do like where her powers go. she ends up with, as an empath, she ends up with the power of truly being able to influence other people's feelings. So if she says, you know, be happy, and she thinks about being happy, or even just suggests to somebody be happy and she touches them, or her powers are big enough, she's able to affect the emotions of people around her. And I think that that's really cool, especially because Maggie is supposed to be such an empathic character. We also see her growing and starting to get the power of premonition, echoing the original Charmed. So one of my biggest issues, and I know I mentioned that season 1 is a better season, but the very first episode, and I should have known, you know, I really should have had my hackles up from season 1, because this is definitely something that bugged me, is that when they first get their powers, Mel, she is only able to use her powers when she's not, quote, angry. The first episode sets her up as being just angry about everything, so angry that she's pushed her sister away, she pushed her girlfriend away, and this is right after they find their mother dead, and after a professor at school who had been accused of SA ends up being reinstated. And a student that goes at that school basically says that her mother, Mel's mother, deserved to die, and Mel punches him. Rightfully so. I would have done the same thing. But the whole episode, everybody's talking about how angry Mel is and they can't stand her, and you pushing me away, and you're just so angry about everything. And then for her powers to only work when she's not angry, and that to be kind of the gag of the show, just felt really uncomfortable to me, because for a show that's supposed to be feminist and a show that is supposed to not be about judging women, it felt very much like a judgment call. And we as women of color already have to be careful about our anger and to tiptoe and to take bad news on the chin and to not really let it bother us depending on the circles that we're in, because if we do, we'll be labeled as an angry woman or not given opportunities or any of that stuff. So for Mel to be so chastised and for them to write in the show that her powers only work when she's not angry just felt really dumb and unnecessary, especially because it's not something that comes up again. There's never any other moment in the show where it's like, you know, Mel truly deeply has, beyond the stuff that she has every right to be angry about, losing her mom, her girlfriend dumping her months after, like a month after her mom dies, and then this chump over here saying, you know, your mom deserves to die. Beyond those things, we're not giving any indication that she has anger issues surrounding trivial things. And we never have a moment, again, with her kind of addressing this anger. It was kind of like one episode, she was angry, powers only work when she's not angry, cool, done and dusted, and then they move on. And I guess it just feels like if that's something that is, you're setting up this entire episode and you're spending the whole episode talking about, I would have liked for them to have included that more and maybe use that as part of her character development and having her do yoga or do meditation or do things that maybe help her reduce that anger, even though I felt her anger was justified. But we don't see that. So I would say that that is a big issue with character development that I have with the show, where the characters don't necessarily have the opportunity to grow. There's a statement made about them from somebody in the show, and we are just supposed to believe that that's the case without actually seeing it or without seeing any growth. As an example, Macy is set up to be the kind of geeky, smart one who maybe didn't really go out. She's a virgin in the first season. She's, I think, 28. And she's set up to be, you know, a homebody, and she loves to bake, and she loves science and all of these different things. And so that's what we know about Macy for most of the show. And then in season 2, where it's the latter half, there's an episode that's supposed to be a flashback episode of her dancing and doing karaoke and doing shots and this and that, and essentially lashing back out at a man after he gropes her. Valid things. Totally sounds like a fun time, and I totally think her lashing out at a man that touched her, yeah. But it's very incongruous to the character that has been established for us thus far. Even though she's had moments of lashing out with her sisters, this is the first time we see her using her firepower in the past. And there's also a moment where she comes home, she's drunk, her father is telling her, Macy, you have to buckle down. First you wanted to be a baker, then you wanted to do this, then you wanted to do that. And once again, it doesn't seem like it fits with everything that we have been told about this character. She herself said that she was one of the only Black students at a PWI, and she had to basically choose whether she was going to be the smart one or the sexy one, and she ended up becoming the smart one. So having established that as Macy's character, to have this flashback scene be her seemingly flighty and not knowing what direction she wants to be in it felt stupid. It felt like it did not jive with everything they've told us about Macy so far, especially because this is supposed to be a moment of her in college. Now the woman's like 28 and she was a scientist. I don't know how old she's supposed to be, but if she's out legally drinking, she was like 21. To me, that's wild, because it feels like if you were a scientist the way she's a scientist, like you would have to be in school for a while. So to me, it does not make sense for her to be so up in the air and flighty if she ultimately ends up becoming like a biologist or like a scientist, because that takes a long time. So it's things like that where the show, you know, says one thing and does another. Harry, I would say, goes through the most transformation between seasons 1 and 2. Like I said, in season 1, Harry was pitched and felt more like a father figure. In season 1, the elders end up taking his powers away because they feel like he failed the sisters, so he ends up aging. And there's a whole entire episode where he's like a 90-year-old man, and Maggie's like, he's wearing his old man pin. And all of his sisters are treating him with such reverence and such, you're my guardian, you've had my back, you're my friend, as well they should. But then in season 2, the boy goes through a bit of a transformation, and now suddenly he's supposed to be a hottie. Suddenly he gets a haircut and he stops wearing 3-piece suits, and suddenly he's all Macy can think about. And they end up redoing the White Lighter Witch romance with Harry and Macy. I will be talking about the relationships of the show later in the video, but needless to say, the Hasty situation is not my favorite. I think that them having the Book of Shadows in this show is fine, but like I mentioned, it makes it too easy, the fact that they're able to just say, tell me a spell for X, Y, and Z. The Book of Shadows ends up being destroyed at the beginning of season 2, and this destruction felt very symbolic, almost like a symbolic, we're totally divorcing ourselves, not only from season 1, but from the original Charmed. It's not entirely true. A lot of the same powers and things are similar. There's still the White Lighter Witch romance, but I didn't feel one way or another about the destruction of the book. The sisters end up trying to recreate it, which I thought was cute that they did. So in season 1 is very monster of the week, and in seasons 2 and 3 it's a lot more cinematic, and it doesn't follow that same formula. I think that with them featuring the source in season 1 and then getting rid of it in the same season felt like a rush, because in the original Charmed it took them several seasons, I think all the way through season 5, for the source to even be vanquished. And I think that it set the show up for failure. It painted them into a corner, because where do you go once the source of all evil is destroyed? The other thing is, we never really got to see the effect of the source of evil. We never got to see it interact with other demons, or it tell us its mission, or send other things out in the way that we did in the original Charmed. So when the source was vanquished in the original Charmed, we felt the stakes. We were rooting for it actively for several seasons. And in this reboot, nah. Like, I didn't care that the source was destroyed, because they did not give me time to hate it. It just was a thing that they talked about, that was hanging over their head, that they got rid of within 2 episodes at the end of the season. Likewise, they got rid of the elders at the end, all throughout season 1, with the exception of one elder, and I will go into that when I talk about my overall views of the story. But again, similarly to the source, it felt too soon and like they didn't know where to go once they decided to do something that big. There's also the issue of seasons 2 and 3 taking on less of a monster of the week format and more of I guess I would say individualized storylines for each of the characters, and I do mean each of the characters because there are whole entire ass episodes dedicated to Harry finding out about his past, to Jordan figuring out his curse. There's, you know, episodes where the sisters are doing things together, but mostly individually. In seasons 2 and 3, a lot of their storylines take place separately. Now, that may or may not be a bad thing. I don't know how people would feel about that. Being that I like the actor who plays Harry and I like the actor who plays Jordan, I did not mind. But I did want to see more of the sisters together and doing things together, because that's what I came to the show for, is the sisterhood, not necessarily the side friendship relationship characters that the show has, even though a lot of them are great. The other issue that I have with the show are the relationships. Now, it's not just that the show tends to rely a lot, for all 3 seasons, tends to lean on these relationships over the sisterhood. It's just that some of these relationships don't work. There's an episode in season 2 where Maggie and Mel need to save Macy, and in order to do that, they have to find something that she dreams about, she dreads, and she desires. Each one thinks that they know their sister more, but they end up conjuring like a hellhound, basically, because they don't really know their sister. While I understand this because they've only had their powers for about a year, and this is a sister who just came into their lives, it felt more like a commentary on the show's writing than it did a commentary on the sisters not knowing their sister. Because after that, after this realization that they have no idea who their sister is, there was no effort to be like, let's get to know each other, let's have a day where we're hanging out, and then they get interrupted by demons. The first Charm did that several times very well. I think that even if you have a sister who is a long lost one, there still should be an effort to get to know them, and you definitely kind of feel that divide still, where it's Maggie and Mel and then Macy. I think this also is reflected in the actresses' chemistry. I know a lot of people had mentioned, and I even noticed it as well, particularly in the first season, Mel and Macy don't have a ton of chemistry. Now, I don't know if that's on purpose, where the show decided to, you know, have them be adversarial because Mel is somebody who takes a while to warm up to people, and Macy is somebody who is used to being alone. But you see how I'm making excuses? You see how I'm like supposing and assuming? I shouldn't be having to do that. We should just know this was a choice made by the shows on purpose, the show on purpose, or this is something that they goofed up. These relationships, romantic and whatever, I'm just gonna go into and list them out and yay or nay 'em. So Macy and Galvin. Galvin is a fellow scientist who works with Macy in the first season. I'm gonna say yay. I liked Galvin. I liked the actor who played Galvin. I think that this had a lot of potential, especially with Galvin having Haitian roots and having a grandma who kind of lightweight taught him a little bit of voodoo and some Yoruba traditions. I think that that aspect could have been really great to bring more of into the show, but they killed Galvin off in season 1, so there's that. Mel and Nico. Nico was a detective and Mel's girlfriend in the first season. When Mel could not protect Nico from a demonic assassin, she cast a spell to rewrite her and Nico's history, and so Nico never met her. This inadvertently rewrote Mel's own history, so she no longer had a job. She magicked herself out of a job, and Nico ends up coming back into her life as a PI anyway, and it's a little weird. So I'm gonna say yay-ish. I think that the first part of the relationship before the time shift and memory loss was fine, but then it just didn't make sense that they brought her back in. Mel and Jada. I shipped that relationship. I definitely liked the actress who played Jada. She was really talented and beautiful, and I enjoyed her power. I wish they would have included her character a lot more. I definitely liked this pairing because it was somebody who helped Mel foster and explore her powers in a way that the elders weren't helping. Macy and Parker. So this is supposed to be the big epic Phoebe Cole moment, and I'm gonna just nay. I'm naying the end of it because I didn't care. I did not care. Lord, when I tell you I didn't care. Now, Parker is half human, half demon. And once again, the allusions to Cole are all there. His mother, who is a scientist, is trying to help him not be sick anymore and get rid of his demon side. His father is trying to get rid of his human side. While I did like this push and pull and the family dynamics there and the will he get rid of the demon side or won't he, I felt like they spent too much time telling me about this and not enough time focusing on the sisters. I just didn't particularly buy this character Parker as a potential demonic overlord. I think with Cole, he had been a demon for so long that when he came and became human, it was kind of sweet. And I think they were trying to do this the other way with Parker, but the character just never felt like he got there. I never believed that he could be evil. I'm sounding a little sadistic here, but I am saying that the stakes and believability of a character who could potentially run the whole demonic underworld wasn't there. I also just found their relationship a tad bit annoying, so I'm naying it. Maggie and Jordan, they are in that will they or won't they situation. I'm saying yay because I want them to be together. Jordan is very Maggie can take care of herself. He's helped her get over her panic attacks, and he seems very integrated with the rest of the family and has his own kind of relationship with each of the other characters, including Harry and including Macy, and I appreciate that. Mel and Ruby. Ruby is somebody who Mel met and they slept together. And then they reconnected once Mel found out that Ruby was a witch. Ruby did not want to have anything to do with the magical world, but Mel dragged her in because she needed her help, and then Ruby basically decided, well, I want to be with you, so I will become a witch. I'm denying it because it was a boring pairing to me. The actresses don't feel like they have a ton of chemistry, and I don't see it for them. I like the actress who plays Ruby. It didn't seem believable to me. Mel and Abby. Now, this is not like an official relationship of the show. It is the one that I'm shipping the most because I feel like the actress who plays Mel and the actress who plays Abby, Poppy Drayton, had the most chemistry. They have that push and pull, love, hate, enemies to lovers potential, and I was so hoping that we would get a Mel and Abby, the rich demon coupling we deserve, but we didn't get it. But this is a relationship I felt had the most potential because Mel was bringing out a lot of Abby's better traits and really helping her realize that she could be a better person, and Abby was helping Mel not see things so black and white and so good and bad and see those gray areas, and they had such a wonderful back and forth. Oh, I was here for it, and I'm a little salty that they didn't pursue this relationship. Finally, let's get to the relationship of the show, or the, I guess, second kind of most important relationship in the show, that of Macy and Harry, or Hazy. I nay it really hard. So this is supposed to be the Leo and Piper part 2.0. And I think there's a lot of differences, obviously there should be, but the main difference and issue for me is the chemistry and believability of the relationship. So the actors who played Piper and Leo had a lot of chemistry together, and they established Piper's desire for Leo pretty early on. She's got a crush on him, she's thinking about him, we know it, we see it, and then when she makes a move on him, we celebrate it because we think that they would be great too. And there's been flirtation there. In season 1, at least to me, to moi, to little 4'11" me, there is no indication at all that Macy has any kind of feeling for Harry at all. Like I have said, I've mentioned this a couple of times throughout the video, Harry is very much a father figure in the first season, and he has more of a relationship with Mel than he has with Macy. So then, cut to season 2, where we meet Darklighter Harry, which I will talk about. Macy starts having dreams of him, a Darklighter Harry, and I think that's what sparked her desire for real life Harry. And again, he got a makeover in season 2 where he's less fatherly, more I'm just a guy. And again, I think that was showrunners, they really wanted to have a white lighter witch relationship. This ain't it. To me, there's no chemistry between the actors. there's a friendship chemistry, not a relationship chemistry. The relationship felt rushed because in season 2, Harry had a little bit of an interlude with Abby. I thought they were gonna get together, and Macy has a moment with another character named Julian, who turns out to kind of be a bad guy. And for a hot second, it seemed like those were the relationships, and there wasn't really a ton of jealousy. So then when they give us Hasty, I guess, and then in season 3, we kept hearing from Harry, I finally get with the woman of my dreams. The woman of my dreams. I'm with the woman of my dreams. It felt really forced, y'all, and I was just not here for it. And it also felt foolish to pursue because the actress who plays Macy leaves the show after season 3. And y'all spent all of this time getting them together, and then she leaves. Foolishness. I did not like it, and again, it felt really forced. A lot of the relationships on the show feel forced, aside from the Mel Abby one, which again, I still ship. And now we're moving on to, I guess, just some of my thoughts, observations. I don't really have a section title for this area. Just some basic observations of other issues I have with the show. Okay, so Macy's demon powers. They can't really decide whether or not these powers are supposed to be good or bad. And I don't mean the characters, I mean the writers. Because at one moment, they're telling her, don't use them, they're taking over you. But then the next moment, she's the only one with powers, and she's not spiraling into her demonic form or anything like that, and they are useful. So it's that, again, part of the world building and deciding on your rules of the world that you are setting and being consistent. That's, I think, an issue with the show is consistency in terms of pacing and in terms of setup, honestly. The other issue is with the elders. I had mentioned to put a pin in it, and in the beginning, in the first season, there was a prophecy where the great sages would fall, and that meant the elders. So all of the elders had to die in order for this prophecy to be carried out. In season 2, however, we find out that, oh no, there is still an elder alive. She's an elder who, like the sisters, had her power stripped and went through like witchness protection to essentially go off the grid. And while I understand that, and that's cool and all, her presence felt very slapdash. It felt like, again, the showrunners of season 2 wanted to have an elder and realized, oh, well, they killed all the elders in the first season, so like we gotta figure something else out. And it feels like even if the character was stripped of her powers and stuff, wouldn't the prophecy not have worked because she's still a sage even though she doesn't have her powers in her title? Or are those the only things that make somebody an elder? To me, it doesn't make any sense, and it felt very last minute. This is, again, forgetting your rules that you established, which I will be doing an entire show about world building and probably other kind of media about world building. But one big thing is to set rules and follow them and be consistent. And the show has an issue with consistency in that way. At the beginning of season 2, there's all this mention of a demon war on the horizon. There's a new overlord, and they're gonna take the fight to the witches, and there's this demon war happening. And we end up finding out that the overlord is Abby, and even though she ends up, becoming friendly with the Charmed ones, there's still kind of whisperings of this demon war, but we never see it. And it feels like they abandoned that storyline to have a storyline of humans are coming for magic because they're mad that they never got none, and, humans are the big bad of season 2. It's that inconsistency there, and I also didn't really like that storyline. I felt like that should have been saved for season 3 because, once again, it felt like they were where are you gonna go, sis? Where are you gonna go after you have humans try to come for the magic and then you fight them off? Like, what's next, There's a scene in season 3 where the sisters are going into a cave to retrieve a magical object. They're told that they all have to wear face masks because breathing the air is fatal. But literally later in the episode, there's no masks. They don't have to wear it. And then when Macy goes back into that same cave to try to acquire something that will help them defeat this big bad, she also has no mask. So that is also an issue. I would say kind of the writing, but it's an issue with their script supervisor who didn't pick up on that inconsistency to, you know, flag it for them to reshoot the scene. There's also in season 2 things that, once again, when we're talking about things that are said or mentioned that don't get addressed again, there's a magic shop that was given to Mel by Kat, a woman who turns out to be a medium, and she, you know, leaves the area and goes to move back home, and she gives Mel her magic shop. We don't find out what happens to the magic shop. And even though that would have been very Buffy-esque of them to have, you know, one of the characters run a magic shop, I still think it could have been a good move for them and a new way to breathe life into, you know, the season where you have this magic shop where they're able to interact and speak with other local witches, or they're able to, hey, I need this herb or I need this whatever, and they're able to get it from the magic shop, and we never do find out what happens to it. There's also the issue of the evil in the show, in that there is no evil. There's no stakes for the evil. I'm not afraid. I was never worried that the Charmed Ones would defeat any of the foes that they came across, which does not lead to any tension, because you always know that the Charmed Ones are going to win. When we're talking about, again, I mentioned they killed the source too soon. There's a creature called the Whispering Evil at the end of season 3, which was really cool and could have been even better and a really cool lead-in to season 4, but they killed at the end of season 3, and actually this is the thing that kills Macy. There's Abby, who, once again, I love this character. I would have loved her and Mel together, but she does end up becoming an anti-hero and ends up becoming less evil and more in the middle, which I like and I wish they would have kept up with, but I think it's, again, the show not having any other evil available. There's the Shea group, which, again, these are the humans that are trying to come for magic. I didn't care about the reasoning. It's pretty convoluted, but Julian's trying to figure out magic because he had an experience with a magical being as a kid, and he's trying to find it, and his aunt's trying to harness it. But we never really do figure out what her impetus is for wanting to get rid of magic or for humans to have magic on their own. Beyond the whole, she's a rich, powerful white woman, so of course she's gonna do what she's gonna do. There are these beings called the Perfecti, who are kind of weird. Like, it's uncertain the whole time whether they're good or bad, and at first they end up helping the Charmed Ones, but then after they hear more about things the Charmed Ones are doing, Charmed Ones are chaotic, so they try to kill them, which I saw coming. Like, quite as kept, I saw that coming. Then the Charmed Ones end up, you know, defeating them the same episode. Like, this is a 1-episode arc where the Perfecti are totally cool, and then they turn on them, and then the Charmed Ones get rid of them. And then they go back to the Perfecti for help, and it just is like, who's evil in this show? My dude, like, they don't feel like there's any real stakes. Finally, I'm gonna get into some of the missed opportunities with the show, because there are a lot, and then I'll wrap it up with some of the things I like. Okay, so my biggest missed opportunity, and I'll keep saying it, is Mel Abby relationship. You have heard me. I know I'm right on this. You know, Mel and Abby, come on. If you are somebody who watched the show, you let me know what you think. I definitely was here and rooting for them, and I'm sad that they didn't get their chance to shine. There's also the proper intro of Celeste being an elder, because she's essentially found in the trunk of a car. So there's that. Again, I've mentioned this a couple of times, you know, Harry's treatment in the first season versus the other 2 seasons. It just felt like, I don't know why they had to have Harry as a love interest at all. I would have liked to have seen him continue to be that father figure for the sisters. He had a unique relationship with each of them. You know, with Mel, it was very brother-sister. With Maggie, it was more father figure. And with Macy, it was more of like a colleague, because, you know, they were both into logic and science and history and all of these different things, and they had that stuff in common, but it didn't really, to me, need to lead to a romantic relationship. And so I really wish they would have kept him as just a father figure and, you know, had another person be a love interest for Macy, if they decided to do that. I wish we also would have gotten to see more magical beings like in season 1. In season 2, there's a storyline of the Shea group trying to steal magic from all these magical beings. So we're introduced to them kind of tangentially. Like we don't necessarily get to see a lot of them doing magic stuff and learning who they are and what they do. And I just think that that's a missed opportunity, that they can show more of the magical world, because right now it feels very like witch, demon, ghost, and that's it. But they introduce all of these kind of really cool things in season 2, like something called the Kion, and there's like a rat demon that there's a second of it, and then that's it. The show also has moments where it deals with mental health, and that is one of the things I like. Maggie is somebody who has a great deal of anxiety, and there are episodes where she has panic attacks. And I appreciate that they integrated this into the show, because it shows that anybody could be affected by mental illness. Anybody could have panic attacks or anxiety. I'm somebody who struggles with anxiety. I've had panic attacks a couple of times and they are super scary. I've had sleep paralysis, all of that. So I appreciate that they included this in the show. You know, they have Maggie's dad mention that she had them when she was younger, which is cool, but once again, I wish we would have gotten to see that in season 1, because Maggie in season 1 seems very confident, and in season 2 and 3 she's definitely grown. But I wish we'd have got to see even a hint of that panic attack in season 1. You know, with Macy being a scientist, there are moments where they end up solving the creature feature with science instead of a spell or a potion, and I think for this show being about magic and witches, I would have liked for them not to do that. I like the moments where they use the science to get out of tricky situations, not necessarily to replace spell and potions, because that feels really lazy, you know? I also think that this show, given that the fact that the characters are supposed to be of Puerto Rican descent, I really wish that they would have had more moments of spells in Spanish and integrated other type of magic into the show. In season 1, they had the, you know, Haitian moment from Galvin. There's also Mama Roz, who had been a voodoo practitioner, and I liked the inclusion of her, and I wish that they included other types of magic in this show and it wasn't so Eurocentric. They also introduced a character in season 3, called Josefina. She's their cousin who lives in Puerto Rico, and she's a really good character. I really liked her inclusion. She is a trans woman, and because she was not assigned female at birth and, you know, a biological female, she doesn't initially have her powers, and she's dealing with a lot of transphobia from her family, who are saying, you know, because she's not a biological woman that she will never have powers, which is not true. She ends up with a really cool power. She's a nature witch, and we haven't seen her again. She was in a couple episodes in season 3, and I don't know if they will bring her back for season 4. What I do know is that she is not the one who will round out the power of 3, and I think that that's unfortunate, because we've already established this character. We've already established her relationship to the sisters and that she is a blood relative, and so it feels, again, like a missed opportunity not having Josefina be the one who comes back and ends up rounding out this trio and learning more about her powers and exposing the sisters to that other side of their heritage and shedding more light on their family and their family secrets and things like that. I can't even tell you that, like, this should have been the way that the show went, and they didn't. They decided to cast somebody else. We don't know what relationship this person has with the sisters. We don't know if they will be biologically related or if it's going to be somebody who is sister in spirit but not in blood. I really wish they would have gone with Josefina to round out the trio now that Macy is no longer there. So now I'm going to move on to some of the things that I do like about the show. So in this show, they have the dark and white lighters be the same person. In the original show, they were different people. But I think that this is something that adds some tension to the show when you have a dark and white lighter be the same person. and if you kill one, the other dies. That for sure makes it to where when we are presented with Darklighter Harry, Jimmy, the sisters can't kill him because then they would lose Harry. So I really liked that aspect, especially because it points out the whole light and darkness within each of us. I like that the show has episodes dealing with real life things. There's an episode featuring Medusa where it goes into her origin story and the real things that happened to her, and these sisters use a different method of saving the day, and I really appreciated that episode. There's also another episode that deals with misogynoir that Macy struggles with and is really affected by, and it's definitely something that as Black women I can relate to, and I know a lot of other Black women, women of color, can also relate to that particular episode. I will say that Harry, having been a women's studies professor, kind of should have known what misogynoir was, but it's still a pretty good episode. And there are other episodes like that. I think there's an episode with a pixie. I think it's kind of supposed to be a play on the whole manic pixie dream girl. That's a pretty good episode as well. So there are one-offs where, you know, they are kind of addressing real life things or pop culture things, and I appreciate that. I mentioned again how I really like the character Josefina. I hope we get to see more of her. I like the LGBTQ rep. In addition to Mel, Abby is bisexual. We also have a character in season 3 named Kevin who is a trans man, and we get to see them thriving and, you know, living their lives, and I appreciate that. I mentioned again the addressing of mental health with Maggie's panic attack. There's also an episode in season 3 where she decides that she needs to see a therapist. As somebody who has been seeing a therapist for 2 years, I cannot recommend it enough. I think it's really great that they included this and showing that even magical beings can struggle with things like anxiety. Again, I mentioned that I really like Maggie's power, her being an empath and being able to influence other people's emotions. The other thing I like about this show is the fact that the wardrobe of the sisters is not for the male gaze. These sisters are wearing clothing that is very practical for what they're doing. It's also very sexy and wonderful. I love all the clothes that they're wearing. I want all the clothes that they're wearing. And unlike the original show, they're in stuff that is practical for the moment. And I think that that was one of the things that I do not like about the original, is that the wardrobe felt like it was for the male gaze. And I would not feel that way if they didn't dress Piper the way that they dressed Piper, because they did Piper dirty. Piper was the one who would be wearing slacks and a scoop neck shirt. Meanwhile, Phoebe's in a halter top and booty shorts and boots, and they're going to save the world. So to me, it just felt very like they were sexualizing Phoebe and Prue and Paige and not Piper. And to me, that is hinting at it being more for the male gaze and not necessarily a choice for the characters, because they never put Piper in anything sexual. You're telling me she's wearing slacks at the house on her day off? She's wearing slacks? No. So that's why I like this show, is that the outfits feel modern and like things that women would actually wear, and they have moments of being sexy, and there's moments where they're just cute and they're loungy. So that's definitely something that I like more about the show, is that they're being more practical about the things that women are wearing. Now, I've said all this stuff, I've talked about a lot of the issues of the show, but I think the main question is, would I recommend it? And honestly, I would. I think that this show is not perfect. No show is. There are a lot of issues. I know a lot of people feel a way about it because, you know, there are moments of teen drama, but it's on the CW. You know, I think that there's a certain drama quotient maybe that the show has to have. I'm looking forward-ish to season 4. I will tune in. I'm really sad that Madeleine Mantock, actress who played Macy, left the show after season 3. Coincidentally, after season 3 is when Shannon Doherty left the show, so that's kind of a weird coincidence there. But I'm looking forward to what direction they go in. Season 4 has a whole new set of showrunners, so we could get an entirely different vibe from season 1 or even seasons 2 and 3, which is kind of jarring, but I'll tune in. If you're looking for something that you don't have to pay too much attention to, something that's, you know, kind of campy and it's a little messy and imperfect, or if you want to hate watch something, you know, if everything I've mentioned makes you feel like this is a not good show, then I also still recommend it. There are good elements. The actresses are pretty good. I really, really, really wish that I had more good things to say about it though. I wish and hope that the issues that I mentioned are addressed in season 4. It's unfortunate that we're having the second reboot of a reboot show. Like I said, with the different showrunners, they're going in a different direction. They've said they are, so we will see. But that's it. That's my video on Charmed seasons 1 through 3. I hope y'all like it. I hope I've covered everything. If you have seen the show, let me know in the comments what you think. I asked y'all on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, and y'all on Instagram had a lot to say. But again, if you've seen it, if you like it, let me know in the comments. If you agree or disagree with any of my opinions, also let me know. If you are a Mel Abbey fan, say hi, because I am gonna keep talking about them and wishing that they had their chance to shine. If you have any insight on season 4 and you know what's gonna happen with the new sister, how she's related, let me know. I'm curious. I've been looking online, I haven't seen nothing. So if you have any insight, hit me up in the comments. Thanks for joining me. I'm Amanda the Author once again. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Amanda the Author. On Twitter, it is Amanda the Author with 1 E. Instagram and TikTok, Amanda the Author with 2 E's. A little bit about what's going on with me. My second book, To Alaris in Desperation, will be out on September 30th. This is my second standalone book, the second in my Witch Kind series, and I'm so excited. I cannot wait. It's been over a year in the making of this book, and I really hope that everybody who rocked with the first book and enjoyed the first book will like the second, and I hope that y'all pick it up and like it. I will also be doing a giveaway. So if you want to learn more about that and get some free stuff, go ahead and follow me. I mentioned my Instagram handle, Amanda the Author with 2 E's, and I'll be mentioning and talking about the giveaway a lot more on Instagram than my other platforms. I hope y'all are staying safe, and I will be back next week with another video, and I will also be back with the Lit Bitches. I'm sure y'all have seen the first episode we did on Instagram a couple weeks back. If not, you can catch that on my page. And we'll be bringing the show to YouTube. Our next episode is going to be next Saturday, and I will be posting more details about it across social next week. Stay safe, keep shining, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye. So, all that said, they were 3 witches known as the Charmed One, and she wants to rush I feel like I have to burp. She didn't know she had kids, and I forgot to mention the white lighter. In season 1, the main big bad, or the eventual big bad, is where, you know, half human rising of the source, but there's a prophecy rising of the source, a demon whirl she's real hot, and not say that, what or who the new sister will be doing. Okay, so Macy's demon party.